Actors are using their attire and emblems fastened to their clothing to send a message about sexual harassment. But how is the problem being dealt with outside of Hollywood? And what's next for the movement? For a closer look, I'm joined now by Mary Curtis. She's an award-winning journalist and columnist with the Roll Call newspaper. Ma'am, welcome to the show. We've seen companies act quickly when it comes to high-profile people involved in these sexual scandals. But what about smaller industries, smaller companies? How is this problem being dealt with in those organizations?
Well, you do see that a lot of the folks in Hollywood have been both lauded but also criticized because they say, well, this is a movement for the more privileged woman, and how folks who work in other industries, like in factories or as farm workers or domestic workers, really don't have those alternatives to fight sexual harassment because, you know, they need those jobs. So you see in Hollywood that the Me Too movement has been transformed into the Time's Up movement. And in this, you have some powerful folks in Hollywood giving a lot of money to a legal defense fund to help these other women fight these charges. And you have folks like Shonda Rhimes, the TV mogul, the actress Reese Witherspoon, agents, lawyers, and others trying to fight on many fronts. You also see a commission out of this being headed by Anita Hill, obviously. You remember from the confirmation hearings of now Associate Justice Clarence Thomas from the Supreme Court. And she's been studying this issue. And I think a part of that is to fight the criticism that this is only a movement of celebrities. So you'll see that.
So from the company's side, what do you think companies should be doing to address these complaints and protect their employees when these issues arise?
Well, you're right. It has gone from entertainment to media to politics, to all sorts of businesses. And I think you'll actually see more women being listened to on boards and in decision-making activities. So, and you'll also see, as in Congress, when it was discovered that there were so many settlements pushed out there, that there's going to be sexual harassment training. Because these folks, you know, the bottom line is they don't want to be sued. And also, you know, they have to appeal to their customers. And they have to also find a way to keep talented people, because you see a lot of folks would just leave these professions. So it's also for their advantage. And you also see a lot of younger women and women of all ages and minorities and others stepping up to start their own businesses, also run for office in this political sphere. So you'll see if there'll be a certain amount of backlash and more folks supporting women-owned businesses and women political candidates.
Well, Mary, earlier you mentioned the Time's Up movement. The goal of Time's Up Legal Defense Fund is to provide financial support for victims of sexual harassment. As of Friday morning, Time's Up had raised $15 million for the fund. Why do you think this campaign is getting so much support?
I think it's getting support because even though a lot of the celebrities have spoken out, it's a realization that if you aren't as powerful, that you don't have as many alternatives. And you see the companies even that have settled, you have these non-disclosure agreements, and so folks can't talk about even the kind of harassment they have endured. So you've seen a little bit more publicity. There was a big story about some of the problems that factory workers have had and others. You have folks who are domestic workers, folks who clean our hotels, and they really don't have all of the resources. So I think you've seen people realize, you know what, yeah, there are a lot of problems, and they trickle down to women who don't have that kind of power. So you've seen some solidarity there. And I think that's why folks have been opening up their purses as well, because they know this is a pervasive and long-standing problem. And right now, the challenge is to meet it and to do something about it so we won't be revisiting it again.
Mary Curtis, thank you so much for your insight.